I kept the opening up long enough just for you to see it. Welcome. Hello. Hello, Life is Yours. Hello, everyone. Look how bright it is in here. I feel like I haven't streamed in the daytime for a long time. Also, my shirt's kind of purple, and it's kind of purple back there. I feel like my skin's a little purple. I think we're having a purple day. Hello. Hello. So, we were talking on Discord, and Life is Yours was making unflattering emotes of me because I made a beautiful purple emote of him. And you know, I had some constructive criticism that the boundaries of his emotes were maybe not as tidy as they could be because they were not cut out with oh, I need to add that emote here, huh? I'll do that. Because of the way of cutting out. And I feel like this is a thing people struggle with, cutting things out. And over time, Adobe has added more and more ways to cut things out to make it easier on you, like magical background eraser tool, whatever. But for me, for my money, if you need to cut something out, a Bezier curve is the way to do it. And Bezier is, let's look at some stuff, what this means. So it's a kind of parametric curve, meaning, wait, where am I? Where's my camera? Hello, it's me. It just means that it's like a vector graphics thing, right? Like you just have a set of points and coordinates and various parameters to that, and it lets you define a curve. And interestingly enough, it originated before that. I think it originated, yeah, the mathematical basis was from 1912. It was used in the 1960s, I think, for something. Anyway, so it's a thing that's been around. It's been around there for a while. And wait, what happened? Auto host? Wait, are you hosting me? Am I hosting you? Who's hosting whom? But this is a very powerful thing, and in my mind, there's like four reasons I use curves like this. And Bezier isn't the only one. It's what I tend to use, but there are other kinds of parametric curves that are really common in computer graphics. But the things, I'm a black screen. Oh no. Okay, I'm here. I think I'm here. So here's the things that I use Bezier curves for. I use them for, I'm gonna get big for a minute. Hello, it's me. I use them for cutting things out, like especially early in my like motion graphics career, and even in Photoshop realm, like just to get a nice clean cutout of something. Like if you're familiar with the concept of rotoscoping in sort of the modern sense of rotoscoping versus the traditional sense of drawing over live footage, it's very common to go through frame by frame by frame and cut something out. I feel like more and more that's something you would now expect to do on a green screen, and you would key it out. But I've had plenty of times especially in my early career, where you just went through some video footage frame by frame by frame and manually cut something out every time. And you would use the Bezier pen tool in After Effects, for example. And they have something called, I think, Auto Bezier that I haven't touched forever. So cutting things out, masking things is a thing. There's a GDC talk that talks about Bezier tools. What's this talk about?
Look at how this point actually.
Oh, look, that thing. Sure. Oh, that's for generating geometry. That's definitely a way to do. I don't do a ton of that, but that's a thing. So let me finish my list. So for masking things out is something that I use it for. For drawing, I mean, you use it if you're drawing vector graphics in Illustrator or something like that. You use it all the time to create the shapes that you want. Use it frequently, very frequently in 3D animation software, because animation curves are usually defined as Bezier curves or something very similar to Bezier curves. So that if you like have some familiarity with the principles of traditional animation, like easing in, easing out, stuff like that, can all be expressed with Bezier curves. In Unity, when you're even doing stuff like fall off on particle emitters, things like that can all be done with Bezier curves or something similar. Also use it for defining motion paths. Like if you want something to move along a certain path in space, like a flying bee or something like that, it can move along a curve. And similarly in that realm, you can use it to construct geometry. So we've done some of that on stream as well. What was that for? Something we did on stream was defining a curve and then extruding along that curve. I think we've maybe done that a few times. So basically you define a curve in space and then you can extrude a road on it or a roller coaster track or whatever. Oh yeah, the display. So the anatomy of it, and again, there's different pieces here. So in general, it's like hey, you have a bunch of points in space. Think of it like a dotted line or connect the dots. And if you have a connect the dots sort of situation, you sort of go from point to point to point. But what do you do? Excuse me. What do you do if you want curves? How do you express that? You need a little more information. If you just have a dot and a dot and a dot, you would get a hard cornered line there. So there's different ways to do that of differing complexities. So a simple way to do it that I think we've used on stream before is like Catmull-Rom curves, where you just kind of give it a bunch of points, and then it has extra points at the beginning and end. And this algorithm, this I don't even know quite what to call it. Like this spline approach will figure out like, how can I curve through these points and get to the other points? So it's less complicated than Bezier. So sometimes that's nice to just have an easy way to draw a curvy line between points. But you don't have quite as much control. So we use this sometimes. Bezier, you have additional information. So we still have the dots, which you might call, in the Illustrator world, it'd be called an anchor point. You might hear it as like a control point or control vertex or whatever. But basically for every point, in addition to having the point itself, you have what I usually think of as handles coming off of that point, and messing with those handles is how you can change how the line will curve through. And really, in my mind, the mastering of the Bezier tool is all about, one is just you get an intuition for how many points you need, which is definitely part of the mastery, but learning how to handle the handles is in my mind what the real trick is. And just to add things to make it slightly more complicated, often the handles kind of default to be symmetrical, so it's a flat line and it will sort of go in the same way it comes out, both in the angle it comes in and sort of the magnitude of that angle, like how long these handles are. But you can break these handles too, and that's a thing that's really common to do in animation. So all we're going to do today is make an embarrassing emote of me we're just going to mask it out. So like the simplest, most minimal thing, really. Bezier tools are kind of a vector operation when you're thinking of computer graphics. So if you're drawing with them, you'd probably be drawing in a vector-based application like Adobe Illustrator. But Photoshop also supports them for things like masking. And you can also draw shapes and stuff in Photoshop. But in my mind, Photoshop, Bezier is about masking. And again, like this stuff, Adobe's been working for years to automate and simplify some of these things and add additional tools, other ways to erase backgrounds, whatever. I saw today, I don't even know about this like curve, this specifically curvy based, I'm just trying to find the footage for that first video. I think it's this one. That's just curved based without the control point. That looks a little more like Catmull-Rom. All right, so let's see. Let's look in Discord. You gave me a time code, right? I'm gonna find this particular image, courtesy of the life is yours. Hold up was 146. That 146 frames, or 1 minute and 46 seconds. I don't really know how these time codes work.
Hi, I'm gonna pretend like I didn't do a stream earlier today.
We'll find it. We'll find it in here. How much? 146 seconds. Wait. Okay. So 146 minutes seconds is what? 2 minutes? 2 minutes 26. I saw it for a brief moment.
If you don't mind, please, pardon me, pardon my mess. Yeah. So.
Okay, wait. Somewhere in here? This one? Something like that? I always find the one that you pasted on Discord. Just make sure I have the optimally embarrassing face. I think that's it. Is that it? Is that the exact frame? I think that's the exact frame. Okay, so let's save a snapshot of this, and let's open up Photoshop. A better frame? I don't know. You think there's a better frame than that? It's a pretty good frame. I think that was the one. I think that was like the perfect frame because all the so much around it I was moving and it gets blurry. So I think you managed to find accidentally like the perfect non-blurry frame. I think you nailed it. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do for various reasons. I'm going to, rather than just bringing the image in, I'm going to create a canvas of the size I want, which we'll just make 1K. And that is for various reasons, but one of the reasons is that will let us just place the image in as a smart object, so if we need to put any filters on it, we can. I don't know if we will need to do that in this instance, but it lets us use smart filters. Because here's the thing, Photoshop traditionally was a destructive program, meaning that when you did edits, you lost information, right? Like early on, it's like, oh, if I use an eraser and erase something, I could go back in history, but like I can only get to it by going back in history. It's not like I can just revert to that. And I feel like for quite like easily the last 10 years or so at least, but there's been a kind of alternate idea of like, well, actually, let's not do that. Let's try to do these things non-destructively and come up with a way to do these edits non-destructively so that you can just turn things on and off. So by placing this in like this, I always have a reference to this image and I don't have to worry about destroying it. So let's figure out a size that seems like it makes sense. And we may want to add a little sharpness because this is actually bigger than the original image. And we'll want to be somewhere in the realm of, you know, maximizing our vertical space, since that's really going to dictate how tiny this is as an emote. Okay, my beard's going to be a little weird. You can already tell. Eraser to get edges transition from the background better. Well, so you can add softness. Once you have a mask, you can add softness to it if you want. But I'm like, if we like just looking at this image that you had pushed, just there's sort of weird artifacts around the edge and some fuzziness here. And I know that was kind of deliberate, but you know, you have some extra artifacts here. You can see the shape of the brush. It has some lumpiness. So it's not bad, but I thought we would just go through the process of how to do it a little tighter, like, and not have all these bumps and not kind of the ghosting on the edge. Now, if you want that kind of anti-aliasing effect, you can just add softness to your mask once you have the mask. I know I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I'm just saying I thought we would go through like, you know, how I would do it and maybe what I would consider a more pro way. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is just start drawing a Bezier path. And this is the thing. I'm going to put it in a folder, and I'm actually going to put the mask on the folder instead. That's another reason, like if we wanted to do any other more complicated edits inside. So there is this thing in here, this curvature pen tool that I have almost no experience with, but seems to be more Catmull ROM based. But like, it's just a thing that if you need something quick and dirty, it will figure out the curves for you, right? Like, and this isn't what we're going to use here, but just know that this is like available to you. The only way to correct for nonsense like this though is to add additional control points, which is doable. Like you could definitely work with this thing. And I could imagine that there would be scenarios. Do you see that? I don't know the shortcuts on Windows, but there's ways to make this from a curve to a corner is in the language of Illustrator. Oh, and they changed the key. Okay, the hardest thing that's going to happen for me today is doing this on Windows because I have no muscle memory for. And then why is paths not here? For stuff like this for Adobe applications on Windows. So I don't even know the proper new undo. Okay, so let's just start with a regular old Bezier pen tool. Something that's going to be hard to see is the contours over here. Like where the, what is going on? This is a horrible layout. Also, where is the, I got like a classic. No classic, just essentials. Like, why is it not showing my layer stack more? Okay, whatever. Whatever. I think one thing I might do to be able to see this a little more easily is to just throw maybe exposure. See if that helps me see the boundaries of that. It's still going to be hard, so we'll just have to sort of estimate it based on the other side. But that curve is going to be whatever, kind of made up, but that's no problem. Okay, P for pen tool. Control Alt Z in Windows, is that right? I thought I just hit that. So it used to be that Control Z did that, and you had to do Control Alt Z to go only one step. So they've recently changed that. Okay, so regular old pen tool. I tend to want to like just start at the bottom of a curve, and then so much of this again is just muscle, like not even muscle memory, like intuition over time to just kind of know what it takes to make the curve that you want, and also knowing when to be kind of demanding of a shape, you know, like say like, no, this is the exact shape I want. And when you can be like, this is close enough. Like for hair, you know, you'll often want to be like, I don't need all this detail. Now, I'm going to just break this corner as an example of breaking a corner. Like some of this is just hard to see, and maybe we'll go back and make some edits to it, which is another reason that this is really nice, this approach, because you can always go back and make some changes. I'm holding Alt right here to do this little anchor tool to break the handle. And then for big curves, you tend to want to like have as few control points as possible, and just try to, if possible, come up with a curve that's going to work without a lot of additional fuss. That's a little hard to see where this goes, which is fine, because if it's hard to see here, then it's going to be hard to see for anybody else looking at it in another context. Like this little wire coming off is a thing I'm just going to ignore. Like, I don't think we need to worry about that. I'm doing all this with a mouse. Some people strongly prefer to do stuff like this with a Wacom tablet. Wacom. Which I use sometimes, but... and I think we'll just ditch the headphone wire entirely. Like, in fact, maybe we'll just kind of cut its existence out. So we'll get here, get a little cheek. The problem is one thing you have to sort of watch out for, and I may have already done, like my jaw has a slightly weird curve here, and I want to accommodate for that as much as is necessary. But if you add too many curves, you'll end up with sort of weird lumps. And I'm going to try to just fix this by messing with the handles. See, like already it looks like I'm going to have I should probably do some more points here. I don't really want to, but it's going to be a little weird down here with the beard. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Kind of by default, like this, my handles are symmetrical, which is great in some contexts, but doesn't really work here unless I go back here and maybe edit this curve. But sometimes it like tangents, they're also often called, especially in animation. I think you hear them called tangents more. This is a little sharp. I think we could smooth that out a little bit. Okay, so once we have this is nice. There's no destruction. Like we haven't gone beyond the point of no return, and we have over here like this existing path that we want. And I'm going to add some additional paths for like a path for the inside here. Let's make another path for that, and then we will I'll have to remember how to do it, so you'll have to watch me struggle slightly, but have a way to like add it, you know, have one path subtract or one path add or something like that is a common thing to do. Like, I don't know if we really need to get down here, but maybe we want to. very fast and loose with this because it doesn't matter too much. Okay, how to use the mask that was just made. So first, we're making paths currently, and there's various ways to turn paths into masks, and I'll show you that in a moment. This is a little annoying though because it's so dark back here, it's kind of hard to tell. So that's what I was maybe hoping to get some help from with this by cranking up the exposure. Why are you not? Oh, it's appearing right here. Just to see if there was a way, like you can kind of see it in there. This is horrifying. But like if we wanted to make a new path, actually this all could be one path really, because it's all going to be subtracted. We're subtracting all this stuff. But I'm going to say that this looks something like this. Even though we don't have a ton of information to go by. And I mean, also one of the real tricks to the art of this, I think, is just knowing how finicky to be. Like, there's certain parts that might make a lot more sense to be fussy about. Okay, so we have all those paths selected. Now this I might screw up. So clicking down here will create a raster mask. I think there's some combination of shortcuts to hold here. That was it. Okay. Holding Alt, Control, Shift, and clicking this makes a mask from my current path, and it continues to be editable. Alternatively, you can go, I think, to Layer, Vector Mask, Current Path. Yeah. So now we have nice, sharp vectors. But looking at this, and I think this is what you were going for, is this looks kind of not right? Like the edges look so hard. So you sounded like you wanted a little bit of softness to it. So clicking the mask up here, mask, and then on the mask settings, which in this layout is the mask properties, but could be different. You can feather that slightly if you want. That's too much. Maybe I would do like 1 pixel, maybe. This is gonna shrink so much though that I don't really know. Now what's funny about this is I feel like, so looking at this, I can see lots of things that I don't like very much. I feel like the chin is actually okay. I was worried that was going to be weird. We've got kind of a weird hard point here. This whole thing did not turn out super great. Looks like we have some extra information in here. So one thing that you can do is hold Shift and click the mask to kind of toggle it and untoggle it. And just looking at this, I think I didn't do a very good job on one of those masks. So I think I'm actually going to ditch this mask for the moment because I think the mask on the path on the left side, on the right side, I think I did a bad job of actually getting my hair in because I think there's some more curves to this that it would look a little better if we accounted for. They're just a little hard to see. Breaking this might help. Okay, I think that'll be a little better there. We definitely have some awkward shapes kind of inside here that we could account for or hopefully correct. Oops, we kind of want a corner here, so this is a place again that I'm gonna deliberately break this tangent. Some of these shortcuts are not quite what I'm used to because they are a little bit different than Illustrator, which is the endlessly frustrating problem with all Adobe applications is stuff will be almost the same. Like this sucks right now because I'm on the pen tool. Okay, there it is. Like just the ability to switch from like, okay, I want to go to the anchor edit tool or anchor select tool or whatever from the pen tool and what combination of shortcuts it is, which I think is different. I might be wrong, but I think is different than Illustrator. So this is all a little warbly and I feel like it has more information than we really want. So let's clean that up very slightly. And I could also be doing this on the mask, which would maybe be better, but I thought I would go back and edit it here. This I feel like we did okay on. There's some parts on the upper piece that don't look great, particularly up here. See how, when I'm on pen tool, P, getting to the anchor select tool, is sometimes not great. Not that tool, the like, whatever it's called. Convert point tool or whatever. Like, yeah, it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't feel quite right. Okay, let's get a little more curve there. Let's break this tangent. That part's just such a mess. It's a little hard to tell what's going on. I think I have extra points here that really aren't doing me any favors, that are just kind of making things messy. Like all this extra stuff. I think one general rule maybe is to minimize the number of anchors or control points. Like keep that as low as you can and do everything that you can with curves. Like with the handles to give you the curves you want. Because too many points, one just makes it more of a hassle to edit, especially if you're doing rotoscoping and you have to edit that stuff every single frame. Okay. That is a little better, I would say. Still looks like there's a slightly weird lump here. Still looks like this curvature isn't super great, but I would call that an improvement. I think there's maybe something we missed here. Now, rather than going back to the curve, let's just look at what it looks like to edit the mask. So if you click the mask and then use any of your vector tools, you can kind of go back to the same scenario you were in. I mean, do all the same editing that you would want to do. Still feel like it's a little clunky over here. Like this one in particular, maybe it could be a little more rounded. In fact, maybe that's a place where we... It's so to be very picky about what you're clicking at. Clicking on or looking at. Okay, that's a little better. It's pretty good. I just don't like this little divot and maybe not this. Overall, it's not so bad. I think this could be a little nicer. Like this doesn't look great, even if it's technically correct. I think that's another thing, is to recognize that, you know, there's some degree of artistic license here. And it is not your, you know, it's not necessarily your job to perfectly... what tool am I on? Why am I seeing this? I just am not very good at this in Photoshop. But let's just fake this in a way that looks a little nicer. I'm not even sure we need this control point. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that because I made this 1K or 1024 by 1024, and the height of this video footage is really only 720, we've scaled up a bit, so we've kind of lost some detail. Or in other words, it's like a little softer than maybe we'd want it. So I might put a little bit of a sharpening filter, just a little. I don't know if I like that little pucker there. I just don't think we need that much detail. I think we can just lose a control point there. Even if that's like more technically correct. Again, I think that's just a place where it's like, I'm gonna take a little artistic license. We do want those to be connected though. Man, I don't even know what tool this is with this weird little plus. We'll just add like a little swoop. No. Yeah, maybe we just need that additional control point. Let's give it a little lump here. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we do want that one. Come back. Well, it doesn't really pay to be this fussy. It looks like I have a really sleek haircut that I don't actually have. So let's add some sharpness. So I don't think we can add sharpness here. I don't think but there is a smart filter. Sharpen more? No. I think we want smart sharpen. Let's not do that. Wasn't there a smart sharpen? Yeah. Yeah. See the change around the eyes. I don't know if that'll really show up on stream. I know my hair's longer now. I know I need a haircut. I hate haircuts so much. I hate them so much. Okay, so add a little bit of sharpness, which I think is good. This is also where we would decide if we want to do maybe some color correction or anything like that, which I think we're kind of okay on the color. The problem is, I just don't know how well this is going to read tiny. It's at 100%. That's at 100%. Which doesn't quite seem right, but there it is. So, which is okay, because we're not going to use this at 1K. I just wanted to edit. You kind of want to edit as big as you can. I sort of feel like we could have even a little more sharpness here. We just don't want to go so high that it starts to add noise. That's a minor improvement. Another thing we can do is when we resample, we can sharpen when we get smaller. You did the side and back yourself. Well, then you don't need to worry about it because you don't have to see what the back looks like. You're fine. Everything's fine. So it's funny because leaving that stuff in does make my hair look longer. Leaving that negative space in. Or not including the negative space, actually. So I think that looks okay. Maybe we'd want to throw in some curves. Like some of it's going to come down. I just don't know. Like that's a problem with this, with taking something photographic and then trying to render it at like 64 by 64 pixels. I don't actually like this appearing in here, but maybe like a little bit of contrast. Like make it a little more exaggerated. Yeah. If it's going to be kind of a graphic element, I think that's better. Maybe that's too much though. Maybe like 80% of that. Definitely have to make sure my teeth look white, of course. Yeah, Twitch wants the additional size. I wasn't even thinking of putting this on Twitch. I was doing this for Discord. Is this going to go on Twitch also? Guess so. Yeah, the issue is, so let's do a file duplicate on this. Oh wait, is that only, man, I always forget. Is it edit duplicate? Or am I thinking of something that's only in Illustrator? Is duplicate not a thing? Another thing that always screws me up on Windows is on macOS, you can click here and you just start typing and you can search menus, which is one of my favorite UI UX features of macOS. I thought there was a duplicate. Am I thinking of some totally different application? I really thought there was a duplicate in Photoshop. No, I want a totally different image, you know, like I thought duplicate, is that not, I really thought that was a thing. Is that not a thing anymore? I must be thinking of some other program. I really thought that was a thing. But yes, you're right. I could just save it. Now, what did you call this image? What did you call the name of this? Yeah, but I want to maintain, you know, I want to maintain things. Like I want to maintain this high-res version, right? I don't want to, one of my goals in working with Photoshop is to never make destructive choices, right? So should it be Scott hold up or SMT hold up? What's the right, how do people name these things? Okay, anyway, yes, you're right. We can just save a version. And then just to see what these things look at, like, So scaling this down to something like 112 by 112, which is going to be pretty tiny. And then if we went here and we did, preserve details 2.0, is that a new thing? Or sharper, like basically what we want to do, sharper for reduction, is you have different sampling options that basically like is the algorithm that Photoshop is going to use to make something smaller. And if you're going to make something smaller, it's nice to do that deliberately rather than just like letting the software do it for you arbitrarily, because it may not make the right choices. So like a sharper reduction is probably something I would do. So this would, like, look at, that's very tiny, and I really actually don't like the way that it did that at all. Let's try automatic and see if it's any better. Oops. 112 is a weird size. This looks fine, but the resized version looks horrible. Whoa, what? What happened? Oh, you had to set a prefix. Well, Draclin, aren't you on vacation? Are you in a tent right now? Draclin, don't leave me. Hold up. Draclin, hold up. Maybe my problem is this, actually, that we need to flatten this first because my sharpening was probably what was making that look so bad. So I wish Photoshop had a better way to do this. But Control E will flatten everything, and then sometimes I just do stuff like this and flatten to get rid of. So that's probably what the problem was. So now if we do, what? I do not know Windows shortcuts. Okay, now let's do our sharper. So this is our 112 size. That's not a bad 112 size. What are the other sizes? 5656 is tiny. So even with bicubic sharper, that doesn't read super well. And then the other one is 28 by 28. I mean, that's just barely reads at all, right? Like, I don't know if any of these are going to be great. Okay, so not for the way it's represented in chat, you think? You sure? You think it's 56 in chat? I don't think it's that big. Also, Twitch does horrible things to images. Twitch loves to lower image quality as much as humanly possible. Well, anyway, we'll give it a shot. We can try all these things. So anyway, do you have any other questions about, okay, so that's part of Bezier world, but again, like, that's just a small piece of what Bezier, 2828, that's so tiny. That's just not gonna read very well. But like, on the topic of Bezier, there's all these other places you can use it, like animation curves in Maya, animation curves in Unity, cartoonify it. I just don't know if it'll maintain the details. Like, I could try to vectorize it, but I just don't know if you're gonna really have the look. 28 by 28, so little. It's so tiny. It's so tiny. Okay, so I mean, one thing that becomes clear is like every pixel counts in that scenario, and so because of that. Oh, they changed it. I forgot. It's just Control Z now. That's weird. I never liked that they did that thing where you had to step through history, but now I'm like, it's just so common. Okay, so how do I want to do this? So one thing that's clear, as I was saying, is that every pixel counts here. And so we want to really be as big as we can. Because once it gets tiny, those missing pixels definitely matter. Okay. What is the right shortcut? It's so little. SVG? Well, then you'd have to vectorize it. At that point, it would be better to just probably do a drawing of the expression. Okay, so let's save this at the sizes we need. How does this work? Is this channel settings on Twitch? What the heck is it? Roles. I thought it was channel settings. Where do I do all the stuff, like add emojis and stuff? We're definitely calling this hold up also, just to teach Draclin a lesson. Oh, it's under affiliate. Oh, of course. Of course it is. Affiliate emotes. So this is going to be my one emote. Scott M2 hold up. Is that what's going on here? Okay, so we want to save these deliberately at the sizes we want. So we will export them and then we will save different images and not like have Twitch do it because we need. I don't know if we'll get a ton of control, but it'd be better than nothing. So we'll do this. I think we like the bicubic sharper minimal. We do need transparency, 24-bit ping. This is going to be 23K and they allow a maximum of 25K. So this will be Scott hold up 112. Oh, we just said? Yeah. And 56. And tiny 28. Oh well, it's not very visible though. We gotta start somewhere, I guess. I liked that you found this particular image because this is a face that my brother is famous for making in my family, so it seems appropriate. This face that's like, what is wrong with you? What are you thinking? Like my brother's signature look, especially when he's talking to my sister. Okay, curves. So we need a 28 by 28 version. 56, 112. I don't like this prefix. And these are extra emotes that you only get if people are at higher tiers. So if I get more subscriber points, I get more thing. Okay, sure. Okay. Nobody gives me that much money. One of each at the moment. Okay, that's fine. But then the other thing is the what's the other thing? Is this the custom badges, which I just don't know what to do yet. Maybe we'll have a stream where we do some badges and figure it out. I'm thinking for your channel, Life is Yours, I think your badges should be progressively more purple. Like they start out basically white and then over time grow more and more purple. Okay, does that work now? Did I add it? Are we good? How do I know? To refresh chat or something? To watch an ad on my own channel? What's going on here? Oh, they have to approve it? Oh, okay, so it's just pending now. Well, whatever. Okay, so we're just waiting for Twitch to approve it. Okay. Okay, well, great, we did it. That only took 45 minutes. What else? Any other questions? So just like a few other things on Bezier curves, like, because I think they're really important. Like animation curves determines, gosh, that gets into like principles of animation. Is that the book I'm thinking of? Animator Survival Guide. Principles of animation are there's these 12 principles from Disney, but I really think maybe the Animator's Survival Kit really goes into like the details of what makes animation good. And it's a great book and it's amazing. But one of the just general principles is kind of non-linear movement, right? Which is like I have point A, I have point B, and you can move from point A to point B at a rate that's linear like this, or you can go like slow and then fast and then slow or whatever. And typically you call that something like easing. But to do easing like that, you often express that as animation curves. And so, like I'm sure there's a million good places about it. Yeah, stuff like this. Like this is linear. This is between point A and point B. This is kind of sine-based, squared, quatric, you know, like all these different ways. And when you look at these, you're like, oh, this is describing an animation, but you could draw one of these with a Bezier curve. And when you're trying to animate by hand and do hand animation, you typically will do that. You'll draw a curve. Even if you're going to do something procedural or code-based, it can be nice to define that curve visually, which is something that the Unity particle system does. Is all throughout the particle system, we want the manual, not the, for like the life, you know, I want to see the actual pieces though. Yeah, stuff like this, like defining curves for how stuff works, like how something fades in or fades out over time, or how something moves. You don't have to do those things linearly. And in general, in animation, like you kind of almost never want anything to be linear because it just feels stunted and artificial. Maybe if you're doing a robot or something. But these alternate ways to put in, to interpolate over time, you know, time is linear, but what happens over that time doesn't have to be linear. And that's a big deal. And that's a huge thing in animation. And you define that, like if you click one of these control points, you get a Bezier handle on it. So all of these parameters for the Unity particle system, the normal, you know, the Maya animation system, the Unity animation system will all have control points with handles. So I think it is definitely worth learning how to use that stuff. Also, there's stuff like Curvy, which is an asset that we've used before, Curvy Unity. This Curvy spline editor where you can define splines in space. We, I think, had done Catmull. I think that's how you say that previously. But this is a way that you can draw like something and then have train tracks extruded over it. Or Life is Yours, you can have a bee or whatever. $50? That's not horrible. Like if you're working on a project that's going to be very expensive. Now there is, what's that site? Cat-like coding. If you want to do it yourself, spline interpolation is not incredibly hard. So I think there are some tutorials here at Cat-like Coding, if I remember correctly, about some spline-based things. I don't know if they do Bezier, though. Look at this Hexman. I haven't been to this site in a while. They got all kinds of cool stuff. Look at all this stuff. Curves and splines. So that's an older tutorial, as said, but like some of the early stuff I was doing with curves in Unity, I had referenced this. I mean, it's been years ago. It's Unity 4.5.2. But yeah, this supported Bezier. So there's some other tools. There's some other things on the asset store that maybe don't cost as much as Curvy, but Curvy's pretty cool. It does all the extrusion and stuff. The GDC talk, yeah. I mean, this is like, it's pretty key. It's pretty key stuff to computer graphics. And it's a little weird, like, you know, most of what you think of as 3D computer graphics, you know, stuff like you're going to make in Unity in general is, at the end of the day, a bunch of triangles, right? And it's a bunch of triangles that then turn into pixels. And so there's not really room for vector stuff in there in terms of the visual representation of things. Like, that's just not quite how Unity works. Unity is like, hey, you take triangles, you end up with pixels, and that's how it goes. Just like Illustrator is like, oh, hey, you take a bunch of vector control points and you end up with pixels. It's kind of a different graphical paradigm, but that doesn't mean that you don't use this stuff in Unity. You use it in Unity a fair amount for animation and movement. And now there's this crazy thing. I have barely touched it, but there's a vector graphics package for Unity now that does not do what I expected it to do at all. The thing that I thought it would do would be to take in vector splines and rasterize them into sprites. That's not what it does. It takes a bunch of splines and then turns them into geometry, which is kind of crazy and is not at all what I expected it to do. But that is the thing that it does, which is pretty cool. Let's see, what's the one other thing I was going to add? The one other thing I was going to add to all of this is that when you talk about SVG, which is like the open format for scalable vector graphics, an important thing to remember about SVG is that it's just markup. It's just markup, just like HTML, essentially, which can be super powerful because you can draw vector stuff in a browser with coordinates like this. And a Bezier type line, I'll probably call it path in here. Yeah, you can define Bezier paths programmatically like this, and that can be really cool for stuff like procedural, you know, path generation for stuff like CNC routers or 3D printers or whatever. There was a project I did. I wonder if this still works. That was a tool to let you make frames for old devices, like old phones. Where is that thing? Wait, where is... Did I not publish that thing? Oh, it's right here in front of my face. All these frames were made with this like procedural Bezier generation software that I wrote, and then I was able to take that and export it and take it to a laser cutter and laser cut stuff, which is pretty cool. I wonder if does this thing work anymore? It does work. So rather than like editing the control points, it works like this, where you can sort of like universally edit certain control points to make up a frame. And you can do like randomize and whatever. And it was largely a mess. It was just a class project, but it was pretty cool because I wanted a way to make sort of Baroque feeling frames. Like, that's a pretty good one. Pretty nice Baroque frame profile. Looks like I got a little bit of redundancy on one of the control points. Maybe it's this one. No. One of these control points is bad. Can't quite tell which one it is because I can see a little bit of duplication. It was that one. But it can be super fun because you can generate. It's not a far leap from something like this to G code. And this is all, I can't remember if this is actually Bezier, but it's all based on some similar principle, like parametric curves. And then you can use like G code is another way. G code is like a similar kind of thing that you define path movements for a CNC router or some kind of machine to cut stuff for you. That's what this was. This was like generating Verneuil diagrams and then vectorizing them and then taking that to a CNC router. And in this case, I cheated somehow in this, I think I like used processing and made a PDF and then used that to take to Illustrator, which I took into Mastercam, whatever. But I could have done a little more work and made it where it went straight to G-code. And then I could basically write software that would just generate code that a CNC router could use. So at some point, I'm into that. In the near future, we'll have hopefully relatively easy access to a CNC router again to do weird procedural stuff like that. Life is yours. Are you an expert now? Are you an expert on the Bezier pen tool? It just takes some practice, but I think understanding that is really into JS. Well, I mean, so I do a fair amount of, gosh, there's some tools. Let's see. Raphael.js is maybe one. That's one. There's also svg.js. If you wanted to do this stuff in JavaScript, svg.js I've definitely used for stuff too. So you can write JavaScript to animate SVGs, do weird stuff, whatever. I can't remember what I used that for. Sometimes I use that stuff and then like for WebGL stuff that then I rasterize on the fly, whatever weird things. Anyway, Bezier pen tool is awesome. Parametric curves are awesome. There's a lot of other kinds of parametric curves, but I would consider it if you were gonna be a person that works in the realm of computer graphics, oh yeah, for your timeline, sure. Projects like that could be good. But yeah, I would say like if you're going to be a person that works in the realm of computer graphics, some understanding of parametric curves is super important. And in fact, I can barely even speak to this because I am so not an expert in it. But the natural evolution of parametric curves is parametric surfaces, right? And so, like I was saying earlier, like in the realm of computer graphics, I said something that was maybe still fairly true. As far as like real-time rendered computer graphics, we're all about triangles, right? But you can define surfaces in the same way that you define curves, right? You can have control points. So this is a sphere. If I go into Maya and I make this sphere is a polygonal sphere. It is represented by polygons. Like it is represented by creating geometry, which ultimately would be a bunch of triangles. You know, like if we triangulated this, wherever that is. Like this is what Unity would do. Unity would be like, awesome, let's draw some triangles. This is what your graphics card wants, perfect. But you also have the ability to define surfaces as a bunch of curves, for example. So this whole realm of curves and surfaces, I honestly almost never do this kind of stuff because I'm focused on the real time. And so it's not super common. I will say you can do some pretty cool stuff with that though. David, who I work with on a lot of projects, David Lobster, wrote something for one of our projects that would let us do all these crazy swirls. Do I have a good gallery of this stuff? I don't know if I do. Maybe it's on my site. Like, all of these crazy sort of galactic swirls. I really thought I made a, guess I didn't. This stuff was all actually defined as like sort of curves. And so it was really fast to download because we just had to download, this ran on people's phones. And so all of these animating little swarthy swaths and things in space were defined as curves, which then he wrote code to kind of generate surfaces out of. So that was super cool. Maya opened really fast for me. Well, it is Maya LT, so it is a little bit lighter. To take 2 math exams? I guess. I don't know. I know, like, okay, first of all, one reason Maya probably seemed to open fast is just because the splash screen was on my other monitor, so you couldn't see that it took longer to launch. As far as the maths, like, I have definitely, like, I did that. I was a research fellow at NYU's Future Reality Labs with a bunch of hardcore mathematicians, or like hardcore computer scientists, where everything that they did was like okay, let me write a complicated equation that looks like it's in a foreign language, basically. And that's just not my world. That I generally understand the concepts there, at least enough to use them, but I don't really come at this stuff from a like mathematical source necessarily. It's more like, oh, that's just a set of tools I can use to do the thing I want to do. And now that said, it is important at least to have the literacy to know that those things are possible, to know that parametric surfaces are a thing and whatever. But like, you know, the world of real-time interactive stuff that I think is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger is going to have so many roles in it, and not all of those roles are going to be, you know, the computer sciencey roles or the engine graphics shader roles or whatever. There's going to be lots of room in that field, I think, for different specialties. However, if that's the part you're interested in, I think you should go for it. Okay, while I'm at it, should I add that emote to Discord? Since I don't need anybody's approval. I don't need anybody to be the boss of me. I can remember how. Yes, okay. Okay. Can't wait for people to start abusing my face. I wonder if it's advantageous to me at all to upload a bigger version to Discord. Like, it doesn't really tell me the size to use, because I'm sure they just scale it down to whatever they want. So I guess to start with, I will just use whatever size they say. Or I'll just start with the 112, because that's what we have. Oh no, so they really crunch it. It does not look great. I guess we could save. I guess while we're at it, a couple things. Let's save the PSD, and then let's save like a 256 version or something. But I think they're just gonna crunch it so much that, like, ideally you want to avoid a resize, so you would do that by knowing the size they're actually going to use. But that's just the blurry blob. Okay, Scott, hold up perp, and I'll change you to TLIY perp. We good? We good here? Let's see. So this says to use optimal emoji resolution, upload them in sizes up to 128, 128. They'll be resized to 32, 32. Okay, so it's getting scaled no matter what, but let's just go ahead and save a, should probably show the desktop. Let's just save a 128, 128 version just so we're not. Yeah, just so much detail, and that's the way the world goes. Okay, Scott, hold up. You think that's correct? You think that's the way to go? Beautiful. We look beautiful. Look how beautiful we look. Wait, what? I think that's one of my default faces, unfortunately. I want to be a kind person, but sometimes that's just the face that happens. Okay, I think that's going to be it for now. Maybe I'll do a longer stream later. I kind of want to get back to that Unity project. I still don't know what it's going to be exactly, but I had some more ideas about at least what will happen to the spheres when we rip them out of our chests. Ugh. I also should get a haircut. I don't want to. I don't want to get a haircut ever. At least you can see the expression I'm making. I think it's tiny, but you can tell. Something to it. Maybe. 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 Save this. Actually, don't save this. Close that. Okay. Scott saved this. That's an important thing. You gotta save stuff. Anything else? Anything else we want to talk about with curves? Has your life changed? Life is yours. Are you ready to go out into the world with a new appreciation of Bezier curves? Camel ROM curves are even easier. You just have less control over them. I don't think they're great for cutting things out unless it's quick and easy. You're woke. It's like there's like one realm of computer graphics. There's like this trifecta of computer graphics. The easy one that everybody gets most intuitively is pixels. It's like, great, I get it. It's a grid of colors, I get it. And then there's geometry based with shaders that turn that geometry into pixels. And that's a little weirder. And then there's the whole parametric world. And I feel like, I'm sure somebody else would totally disagree with that. But in my mind, those are the three sort of paths to get images on a screen. Or you just start with pixels, or you start with triangles, or you start with parametric being curves, like what we just did. A Bezier curve is parametric, meaning you just have a bunch of numbers that define the curve. The thing is right now, like, I might be mistaken on this, but as far as I know, like the hardware, all of the hardware is triangles, right? Like I don't know. I might be wrong, but I don't know of a GPU that like has parametric surface stuff built in. Maybe there is. Maybe I'm totally behind the times. But in general, GPUs are like, yeah, let's do some triangles. But I think that's it. Okay, so cool. That was a nice little office hours. Thank you for the suggestion. Life is yours. And maybe I'll stream a little more later today about the that Unity project. Right? Okay, have a lovely day. We'll check in soon.